Lately, it seems every passing second brings news of another climate-driven disaster. But we still have the power to turn back the clock. Harnessing the power of collective human energy, today's university students are working together to chart a new future, demanding and creating the solutions for a sustainable climate. Our focus in science, engineering, activism, and politics offers the potential of a better tomorrow for all of us. Tune in to Campus Climate Corps for news of what is and what is not happening at this year's UN Climate Conference. Prepare for a livable tomorrow with a life and career of action. Join us and become part of the solution.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to Campus Climate Corps' Day 10 briefing. Wow, 10 days in, it really feels like a struggle going on over there. I mean, although I'm glad to see that Water and Gender Day are making a return this year. There is so much talk about, especially the fact that the new Rainforest Pact was signed between some of the Southeast Asian countries. Brazil made a couple statements today about the fact that the new incoming president Lula will do everything that he can to preserve the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, and just so much more. It's a very busy day at COP27, I imagine. That being said, on the line today, we have Esteban and Michal, and of course myself, your host, Rock Aboujaoude Jr., reporting live from Gainesville. So we're really glad to have you here. As always, just remember, we do have a live Campus Climate Corps volunteer monitoring the chats. So if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do leave them there, and they will most certainly get to us where we can ask them and answer them for you all. That being said, today, we do have some content directly from Esteban, who was lucky enough to get an interview. Esteban, why don't you tell us a little bit before the interview begins? How did you meet this fellow from Japan? What position does he hold? And, why was he so special?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So Satoshi Watanabe, it's a deputy director at the Global Environmental Bureau of the Ministry of Environment in Japan. And this was all also thanks to, in general, the personnel of the Japanese pavilion, but also to other directors from the Ministry of the Environment. So actually, our work trying to obtain this particular interview and tour of the Japanese pavilion started last week. Actually, it started at the very beginning of COP. Unfortunately, we were able to prepare to make it happen. Actually, the Japanese pavilion does this in general. What you'll see in the interview in particular is a compilation of different technologies being showcased for the general public. But of course, we have the privilege of being toured through it and have special interviews with the different representatives actually showcasing this technology. This was also thanks to Saya Mitsuno, who is also a deputy director at the Green Impact Finance Office of the Ministry of the Environment in Japan. She was actually our first contact there.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to presenting the interview to everyone here. Without further ado, let's go ahead and begin.
Good morning. We're here with Satoshi Watanabe, Deputy Director for the Global Environmental Bureau of the Ministry of the Environment in Japan. Hi, thanks for having us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm so fine, and there are many participants in the Japanese pavilion. I'm so delighted to invite many stakeholders from the world.
Indeed, it is a very busy day at the Japanese pavilion. So the first question that we had for you was, what are Japan's goals to cut emissions?
Yeah, our Prime Minister clearly announced the Japan's national target that is carbon neutrality by 2050, and the midterm target is cutting GHG emission 46% by 2013. Oh, sorry, 2030 comparing to 2013. It's okay.
That's a very ambitious target. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what strategies is Japan using to achieve those goals?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, we would like to emphasize that the basic energy plan stipulated in the Central Cabinet last year clearly states that the first priority is introducing renewable energies. So Japanese governments and Japanese private company is working closely to introduce renewable energy at the maximum level. But as you know, there is no perfect energy sources. So Japanese government also work to make innovations about, for example, hydrogen, ammonia, and CCUS, and so on.
Wonderful, thank you. And now we are going to showcase the different technologies in the Japanese pavilion.
So now recently it is often said implementation is very important to achieve goals of Paris Agreement, and fortunately Japanese business company have lots of rich and good technologies, advanced technologies. So at the Japan Pavilion there are 11 technologies and efforts are exhibited on site, and 20 another technologies are exhibited at online. So today I would like to ask you to cover what kind of technologies they have.
It'll be our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. Would you mind telling us a little bit about what's being showcased here?
Sure, we have two technologies. One is the superconducting motor. This is very small, lightweight, but very high output motor, could be used for mobility sectors. So this has a 2 megawatt output. Normally the size will be 10 times bigger than this, but we managed to make it small so that we can be used in mobility like aviation and so on in the future. So this could be used for the electric airplanes in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
And the other one is a power to chemical. This is from using the renewable energy into some kind of chemical material. When there's CO2, there's not much of a use, but if you can convert CO2 to CO, carbon monoxide, you can use it as the raw material. So this CO electrolyzer uses the product to convert carbon dioxide into carbon monoxide.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Our company, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, we're basically technology providers supplying or manufacturing those components. Not only those, these are carbon capture system and hydrogen-fired gas turbine, but we also produce transportation system like a train, metro, rockets, aircrafts. There are so many things. Yeah. Power generation plants as well. And so today we are showing two systems or two products. One, again, the carbon capture system. This is our specialized process to capture the carbon dioxide from the flue gas, such as power plant, steel plant, oil and gas plant. Okay, any flue gas source will capture the CO2, which is the capturing rate is good up to 95, 98, 99%. So then just like this, the 99. This is the purity of the captured CO2. So you can use this captures carbon dioxide for example, food generation. This is actually food grade.
Yes.
Yeah. So like a soda, for example.
I see.
And then you can also utilize the carbon dioxide for enhanced oil recovery. so many things, blue hydrogen, blue ammonia as well. Then this guy is our largest combustion turbine. We call it this M701J machine, generating 450 to 550 megawatts as a single turbine. This one, we started hydrogen-fired development many years ago, and now this one is good up to 30% of mixing of hydrogen. Although we have a smaller turbine, which is 30 megawatt size, then we can fire 100% hydrogen right now. And then this one is ready in 2025 to fire hydrogen, 100%. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And we have considering the plastic waste issue is becoming a global big issue, and also of course GHG reduction is becoming very big issues. So those two issues, with this technology we can solve both. So plastic waste as a feedstock, and we can produce the hydrogen. Then you can utilize hydrogen as a vehicle energy or power generation, or maybe heat or electricity at your household. That is a solution for us.
So thank you for today, and we are GFE Engineering Corporation. So our business, we are constructing waste energy plant, geothermal plant, and also biomass power plant. And we have records that we contributed CO2 emission reductions year 2021. It's over 10 million tons CO2 per year. So in this chart, so blue one is Asia, Europe. We contributed 5.3 millions, and Japan 4.6 millions, other 0.7 million for recycling. So and also now we are constructing waste energy plant in Vietnam with financing by JCM, Joint Crediting Mechanism, created by Ministry of Environment, Japan. So what we want to do is, okay, we have experience constructing this kind of a plant in Asia, funded by JCM. So using this experience and also our technology, we want to also construct waste energy plant in Africa. So this is our main purpose to here, that we expect to meet authorities, countries, people can interest about our technologies. And also, lastly, I would like to show you before, not only plant, but also we have experience constructing Suez Canal Bridge. This is the Egyptian-Japanese friendship bridge. So we had a joint venture, and half part we constructed.
Wow.
Yes. So I believe we could contribute more in Africa. This is our hope. Yeah, thank you very much.
I want to explain Hitachi's business briefly about. And Hitachi is providing whole social infrastructure like energy systems, energy grid and others, and public transportation like railways and other digital platform systems to controlling the factories and the energy grids and others. So Hitachi is co-creating those infrastructure with customers and the public citizens. Since green transportation is very important, we are thinking how to transform whole infrastructure to greener one. And the key is, we think, that co-creation with the government, societies, and others. We are thinking about transforming the power grid, more greener one. We are proud of our high voltage direct current lines, which can deliver renewable energies more efficiently and cheaper. And also we are trying to change the public transportation, starting from the electrified railways. We are starting to develop the public bus and the other trucks using the EV batteries. We are doing a lot more. Digital platform is one thing. We are proud of our digital platforms, which can transform green products and the green consumption. In conclusion, we are developing whole green infrastructure. Thank you very much.
This is an exhibition for the Panasonic latest initiative. This is a demonstration facility for RE100, which uses 100 renewable energy to cover the all electricity in the factory in Japan. So the uniqueness of Panasonic is to combine 3 batteries. First is solar power cell, and the second is a hydrogen fuel cell, and the third is a storage battery. Why we combine these 3 batteries? In Japan, we have a rainy season, so solar cell is not enough to cover whole the electricity for the factory. So we combine the hydrogen fuel cell and the storage battery to stabilize the electricity for the factory. So throughout this combination, we can cover whole season.
I see.
Yeah, that's Panasonic uniqueness.
This is the first technology is about carbon minus concrete. It means the concrete absorbs the CO2. At first, instead of using the Portland cement, use the blast furnace slag. At this time, the CO2 will reduce 80% in comparison with the conventional concrete. After that, add CO2 from exhaust gas and react with CaO. After that, make a CaCO3. This one.
Yes.
So include CO3 and blast furnace slag. Totally, the concrete will reduce the CO2 from the in comparison with conventional concrete, right?
Wonderful.
This is one. The second one is glass integrated power generation system.
I see.
For the wall.
I see.
This is the wall, and also this is for the glass area. So this is a see-through type, and this is usually the building in the building that this solar general system is installed to the roof area only. And in addition, the roof that we use this technology to the wall area. So this is the same efficiency of the power is almost same as the roof area, 20%. This is 5% see-through, 50% see-through. After that, this is a 10% efficiency. So in addition to the roof area, use this technology, the building of generation power will be increased. So this is our technology.
We are Spaceco from Japan, and our product is new material that cooling with zero energy, which means our product is just a film, but it makes 2 points. One is reflected sunlight, almost 95%, and then also another point is the material itself. It's trying to release the heat to the space, so it means make it cooler inside as well, and the material itself also not increase the temperature. So it should be without using any electric facilities as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, Esteban, I think that was some wonderful content. I think that you did an excellent job interviewing them. I do have a couple questions myself and a couple comments. I remember when I attended or I looked at the Japanese pavilion last year, they are extraordinarily innovative, at least with the divestment of what kinds of technologies that they intend to roll out and what are available perhaps over the next few years. I remember that they showcased the same electrical plane technology, the same battery that power planes, which hopefully will be coming online very soon, as I do very much like to travel, with not so much the carbon budget. That being said, we do have a couple questions in the chat. One are, did you get a sense of how scalable these technologies are and or the length or rate at which they can be rolled out into the market? Was there any technology specifically that stuck out to you as things that could be on the market next year or the year after that? What do you think?
So the interesting thing is that some at least are already being used, right? Like there was the case of the factory that had already a balanced budget from different energy sources. So some of them are already there. Otherwise, I'm not really sure exactly when or if how all of the examples are already scaled up and ready to go to the market. I was pretty struck by the concrete that absorbs CO2. I find it, given that concrete is such a source of CO2, I find it a particularly useful solution. And again, I'm also excited about the electric planes. We haven't seen the electric planes going full mode into airlines yet. We still fly on planes that use fossil fuels. Just recently, I think there were trials for successful trials, I think, of planes running on cooking oil. So as you, just like you, I very much like to travel, and I would like to see that happen because just to get some peace of mind. But I think that the ones that are already definitely being used within the ones that we showcased in Japan are the ones related to energy acquisition. For the planes, well, I think we're not that far. That's a good thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also did hear a lot about the cooking oil planes. Hopefully that means we get some meals that were cooked more recently than the ones that I've been fed over the years and on planes. All right.
Hopefully not on that cooking oil.
Hopefully not on that one. All right. So Valholly, I hear you attended the green zone today. For those of you who might know, the green zone and the blue zone are the two zones at COP. The blue zone are usually for the delegates and many of the non-governmental organizations, whereas the green zone is a little more lackadaisical, a little bit more open to the public. Valholly, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience with the green zone today.
Yeah, of course. And before I get into any of that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that technology and how amazing it is to see new technology. Like Esteban was saying, it's really interesting to hear about that CO2 absorbing concrete, especially because at a lot of the pavilions, especially at the Indigenous Pavilion, there's a lot of discussion against technology. And I think it's not necessarily because a lot of Indigenous folks are outwardly against technology, like as an idea, but just because of the history of the United States, especially using new technology and testing it on Indigenous land. Of course, there has been fossil fuel use that has been detrimental to Indigenous communities, but along with that, technologies like hydroelectric dams have been really damaging to the way of life. For a lot of Indigenous communities, and there's been a lot of pushback. So that's something I'll be able to talk about later once I see more presentations about it. But it's definitely disappointing to see so many panel discussions and presentations talking about the negatives of technology, and it feels like that adaptation mitigation conversation that's happening where it has to be either or, and for some reason we can't talk about the negatives and positives at the same time. But aside from all of that, I did attend the Green Zone today, and for the people who were asking about the Egyptian youth, there were some interesting conversations I had today with a lot of the people on the ground, not necessarily Egyptian youth, but they were talking about the Egyptian friends they have and how hard it is to protest, and how hard it is to even attend these events. And like we've talked about before on these broadcasts, it was put in a very inconvenient location specifically for protesting. It's in this very small tourist town, and it's just very hard for a lot of people to get to and to bring the numbers. And in general, it's not the safest for people, especially Egyptians, to protest. Aside from all of that, the green zone was still relatively uneventful. I did go last week before it was technically fully opened. So now I actually got to see all of the places in action, except for they had these experiences, and they're big buildings. They have different themes like cryosphere experience or ocean experience or whatnot. And I'm not really sure what they are, but they don't open until 5 p.m. and they're open until 8 p.m. And I know I didn't want to be in the green zone until 5 p.m. So I didn't get to go to any of those. But while I was there earlier, I did get to go to a few talks, and I definitely got to walk around and see what all the booths are showing. I even got to see the brand that was there. Pardon me, I have the notebook they gave me right here, Tetra Pak, and it's this brand all about renewables and specifically renewable products. And for anybody who is at COP or has seen possibly pictures of it, there are these water bottles that are available, and it's called Good Water, and it's little recyclable water bottles, and they were designed by this company specifically because a lot of the times water bottles are really hard to recycle, especially when they have the cardboard and the metal and the plastic layers. It's just impossible unless it's a really complex recycling facility. But this company is really about eliminating those factors of making it really hard to recycle. And this notebook that they gave me for showing interest in what they were saying is made out of cork, and there's no plastic in it, and it's just really small solutions that can go a long way if implemented widespread. So it's great to see stuff like that, especially from people who aren't these giant corporations, because sometimes it feels like the only way you can get anything done is by begging lawmakers or these giant companies to do anything. But there are still people on the ground who are making small but impactful changes, and that's really great to see, especially in the green zone, which is for locals and for people who, most of the people there don't have blue zone passes. And I was mainly talking to people there who didn't have blue zone passes to see what they were thinking. And overall, it was a little bit more interesting to be there because not everything was in English. And it was really apparent that it was for locals, whether or not it was that safe for protesters or activists, especially local ones, to be outspoken or anything. There were a lot of discussions that were in different languages and a lot more accessible to people who maybe don't have fluent English or just don't speak it at all. So that was cool to see, especially all the way over in Egypt, because that was one thing I had been taken back by the past week, is how much English is being spoken here, and how the only time there are really translators and translation devices available is when it's in a language other than English. So overall, the green zone was still not much happening. There wasn't much happening there, but there were some small things where if you go in and you really look for them, you get to see some solutions and you get to talk to some people who just make you feel a little bit better about the work you're doing. But there still is a lot of retail there, which is a strange experience, especially because in the green zone in Madrid, I didn't see any selling of handmade crafts. While it's interesting to see the artwork, it's kind of strange how big of a space is allotted for selling. And the green zone is typically advertised as a big space for Indigenous folks. And I didn't see anything relating to Indigenous peoples, unlike the green zone in Madrid, where there was an entire area for First Nation peoples. I didn't see anything like that, let alone did I see any Indigenous people, until I saw like a very small group on my way out. But honestly, most of them are in the blue zone this year, which, for better or for worse, it just is. But I'm glad to see them nonetheless, because there is a very big Indigenous turnout this year.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad, hopefully, that you're getting to connect with a few of them while you're over there. I am curious, though, and this is also reflective of a question in chat. How far away are the green zone and the blue zone? Did you have to walk very far from the blue zone? What about transportation? Is there direct transportation between the green and the blue zone, or is it walkable?
So thankfully, the day I went, when it wasn't technically fully open yet, it was really difficult to get there. I tried going with another volunteer on the ground and taking a bus to go there, and the bus dropped us off about 15 minutes away, a 15-minute walk away. And that was a strange thing, especially because we're in the desert, and the only saving grace was that there weren't many buildings around, so there was enough wind to keep us from absolutely dying on that walk. But one, it's cooling down a little bit, I think, and two, we have since found a shortcut to get there. So you have to still walk a ways, because you have to go all the way from the entrance down to an area that isn't the closest. It's for anybody who's at COP, you have to go all the way to the back of Area D, and then you have to find a specific gate that will let you out, because you have to scan in and out with your badge. But unfortunately, you can't get back in through that area. So you can scan out and you can walk across the street. And for that, once you exit that gate, it's maybe about 5 minutes away. But the green zone itself is actually really large, and it's kind of hard to find your way around. And no matter what, it's going to be a walk, even if you get a taxi directly to the entrance. But finding your way back is a little easier. The last time that I was there, I had to walk all the way around the blue zone venue, because you have to enter through registration, which is on the direct opposite side of the gate where you can exit. But now there is a bus running that takes you directly back to the registration area. Unfortunately, if you have somewhere to be at a certain time, you have to allocate a good amount of time to make it there, because the buses aren't the fastest and they take a lot of very long routes to get to where you're going. Like typically in the mornings when I see the venue and we're first making the turns, it's about another 10 or 15 minutes until I actually get off the bus and am able to enter.
Sounds like a interesting little journey between the two of them, that's for sure. I'm glad you found that shortcut. Michael, I hear that you have some more photos today, more information and more pictures that are going to make me jealous that I'm not there. What about your experience today at COP? How was it? And what kind of photos you got for us today?
Well, I have three sets, or I divided the photos into two main sections based on the topic of the day, which was gender and water. So it was Gender and Water Day. So I'll have these images. Not sure if it will make you jealous today, but let's give it a shot. So let me share my screen and let's see what you get there. Here will be the first image of the day. When I arrived to the venue, I saw a huge crowd because it was the first day of week 2. So many people who are allowed or who are accredited for COP are here just for week 2. So it was pretty crowded. I have not seen such a big crowd in COP yet. This would be the registration area, and again, it was pretty crowded. And I had to use some skills to jump the queue because I was scheduled. We had with Esteban, we had an appointment in the Japanese pavilion where we were shooting the video. You saw the video already. It took me a while to edit it, but at least I found a chance to do at least few snapshots. Here would be examples of some of the technologies, but it was already all shown in the video or in the interview, so I'm not going into any detail here. Like I mentioned, today was the Water and Gender Day. So let's look on the on the gender topic. It was a thematic day. The theme was water and gender. To be honest, I did not really notice that it was very focused on either water or gender. It seems to me that the topics simply overlap. They overlap, so it took some effort to shoot images like that would show you how the gender topic was covered today. Here would be an example of some art from the US Center or from the US Pavilion. Eventually, you can stop pause here later on and get an idea what was in the art. But like I said, this is an example from the Oman Pavilion, and it was not related to gender or water at all. It was about increasing temperatures and some satellite scanning from space. There was some female presence in the audience, but again, it was just the topics are simply overlapping. Although there are the thematic days, the topics are overlapping. Here would be a shot from the Cryosphere Pavilion. What they did to sort of cover the gender, all the panelists today were females, so all of them in all the sessions were females today. This is an image from the Cryosphere Pavilion as well. I take similar shot in the Cryosphere Pavilion almost every year because they have on display all the various graphics and images there, and it seems that it's getting worse and worse relative to the melting of the glaciers every year. The graphs are even more and more scary every single year. One exception relative to the topic of gender was the Singapore Pavilion. It was all the panelists were females, and it almost felt feministic. I did not really felt unwelcome, but it sounded to me it was a little bit too feministic for my taste. This is a shot from the Nature Positive Pavilion. My attention caught the display behind the moderator of this session. We can do it. It's such a powerful slogan for this pavilion. Unfortunately, during the session, the pavilion was basically empty. There were about 2 or 3 people. They were busy with the phones. So not sure that we can do it or they can do it, but hopefully there were people watching it online because there was also some live streaming. I believe it was to Sweden. So hopefully there will be some impact there. One last pavilion where I saw some relation to the topic of gender was the United Arab Emirates Pavilion, where this is probably the largest pavilion in whole COP, where there were on display these females, and it was just there was short clips, maybe 1 minute long, and they were playing the clip over and over and over again. I had a coffee there, spent there maybe 10 minutes, and I have seen the very same clip maybe 10 times. So it was not really very entertaining. But the Emirates Pavilion had also some panel where the panelists were only females. Moving on towards the water, the most interesting session I attended shortly was the one in the Israeli pavilion, which was called Israel Always a Drop Ahead. And yes, based on the technology which was related to desalination, what they described, that was really not a drop, but a liter of water ahead of the other technologies that are used for this. And let me give you a quick overview of water-related issues behind the scenes. So this is the fresh water we get here in these half-liter, nicely arranged bottles. Or these are not bottles; these are paper boxes. They are always nicely arranged, and you can pick them up for free. Of course, you also get a free Coke or free Sprite. I don't drink that, so just get the water. The other option how we get to drinkable water are these plastic boxes. They are also neatly stocked there. This is an image from our apartment, and it shows how they sell the water, because the water, the tap water, is not drinkable here. So this is the trash or the plastic bottle our group of 5 people produced within less than a week. I don't really know what else to add to that, because the image tells the story. And this is an image of the neatly stocked water after it's being drunk. And that if you look behind the scene, then you see how the bottles end there. I also shortly attended a prize ceremony, which was called Prince Talal International Prize for Human Development, where they were delivering the members of the Saudi multi-billionaire Saudi royal family were delivering some prizes. And one of the winning projects was called Pumping Water Uphill to Develop Climate Resilient Villages and Farms in Philippines. The prize was handed by Her Majesty Queen Sofia, the Spanish Queen, or Queen Mother, as is her official title now. So the sheikhs were taking photos, and they probably spent some money from their multi-billion, from their billions and billions of dollars. Yesterday we were asked in the chat whether how Sharm gets water, because it's in the middle of desert. So the potable water here is the tap water is not drinkable at all, and Sharm gets the water from desalination plant, like I mentioned before. But there are also few of these small pumps in the desert here and there, but I have seen only very few of them so far. This image was taken yesterday when I saw this heavy machinery digging some trenches, and they were putting water pipes there. So you can see that the effort to get more pipes in Sharm el-Sheikh is in a full spin, because some of the neighborhoods probably don't have any water at all. And this would be the final image of the day. This is from our apartment. The water pressure in our apartment, although it's, I would say, in better than average area, is very low. So when we try to wash our clothes, we always have to use some special tricks. Here, we came up with an idea simply to fill up the washing machine, because it would take probably 20 minutes before the machine would simply start, because the water pressure is so low. But it works, so we have clean clothes. And with being that said, I'm turning it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Michael. As always, your photos, I think, do a great job showcasing what's going on over at COP. Our next presentation is going to be by our very own Dr. John Capece, who's going to share with you some of his information today gathered from Water and Gender Day.
Today, I wanted to talk about methane. During the President Biden speech, he announced that the EPA was ratcheting down on methane emissions, particularly from the oil and gas industry, by requiring mitigation measures from all oil and gas wells, even the smaller ones, whereas before it had only been the larger facilities. So I thought we would talk a little bit about why focusing on methane is so important. As we know, methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. It exerts approximately 25 times the power of carbon dioxide on atmospheric warming. But offsetting that fact, that 25 factor, is a 1/10 factor on its duration in the atmosphere. Whereas carbon dioxide lasts 100, 120 years in the atmosphere, methane lasts only 12 years. So by addressing methane, reducing methane emissions, new methane emissions, after 12 years, you can get your concentrations in the atmosphere down quite significantly. Now, why is this important? One of the reasons it's important is because a lot of our reduction efforts on carbon dioxide is focused on reducing fossil fuels, particularly coal-fired power plants. Now, reducing coal has the effect of reducing carbon dioxide because petroleum and coal-based power production emits approximately twice as much carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour produced as does, say, for example, natural gas. Now, going to renewables is a considerably even greater improvement, but eliminating coal is one of our primary mechanisms for mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. However, because coal combustion in many nations, not so much the United States because we have a lot of controls on sulfate emissions associated with coal, but in other nations, a lot of sulfur goes up into the atmosphere along with the coal smoke. Now, this sulfur converts to sulfuric acid, and it has the effect of increasing the albedo, the reflectance of the atmosphere. So what it does is it cools the atmosphere. So whereas coal emits a lot of greenhouse gas carbon dioxide, it also produces the aerosols that offset the thermal impact of the carbon dioxide. Now, it's said that this global dimming effect is on the order of approximately 0.5 degrees C. In other words, if you took all of those contaminants out of the atmosphere, the temperature would increase by 0.5 C. That's quite a bit, given that overall anthropogenic impacts upon the atmosphere has resulted in approximately, I think, 1.2 degrees C so far increase. So if you took all of those out, we'd be already at 1.7. Now, what are the sources of methane in the atmosphere? So as we reduce coal, we will reduce the global dimming effect. We will increase the temperature. Therefore, we need to offset that increase, and the targeted greenhouse gas is methane because of its short duration in the atmosphere, but its high multiplier factor relative to carbon dioxide. So what are the sources of methane in the atmosphere? Well, basically there are two sources. The fossil fuel industry itself, of the major emitters of methane, fossil fuels, agriculture, and sort of urban sources. Fossil fuels and agriculture account for about 80% between the two of them, and they're about equal. The coming in third are the urban sources, and those are landfills and wastewater treatment. So these are the three areas where methane reduction efforts need to focus. Now, the World Bank sponsored a session on this topic a couple of days ago. And there were three other participants. There was the European Investment Bank and the USA and China. So both banks basically made some introductory remarks, and then they kicked it over to John Podesta, who is the senior advisor to the president for clean energy and innovation. And he pointed out this problem of methane. He discussed it for quite a length of time. He described that methane constitutes about a third of the greenhouse gas problem, in that it accounts for approximately 0.4 to 0.5 degrees C of the overall 1.2 C increase that we've experienced due to human activities. But by contrast, even though it's a third of the problem, only 2% of mitigation investments have been focused on eliminating methane from the atmosphere. So it's a big part of the problem, but it's been a neglected part of the solution for an awful long time. Now, the other speaker was China's chief negotiator, and he started out like a negotiator. The first thing he said was he was glad to see the financiers at this meeting. When he was asked to speak, he said, "Who else is speaking?" They said, USA, the World Bank, and the European Investment Bank. And he said, "Good, because that's where the money has to come from." And of course, we know that China holds an awful lot of US debt, and probably similar quantities from other nations. But I think just the treasury bonds that China holds are on the order of $1 trillion. But after he sort of couched his presence there as expecting to receive money to address this problem from the USA and from the Europeans, he pointed out that methane wasn't even part of China's NDCs. And the way he worded that, it sounded sort of in the passive voice, whereas NDCs are nationally determined contributions. In other words, when the Paris Agreement was reached, China did not put any methane on the table as far as its activities in mitigating the climate crisis. They focused simply on carbon dioxide. Now, he said that it was, however, methane and the other greenhouse gases were part of the 2060 carbon neutral goals of China, and therefore they would be addressed in time. And then he went on to discuss the various sources and challenges. One of the things he pointed out was that China didn't even really have a handle on the sources of methane in its own country, implying that it would be looking to the US for technology on sort of remote sensing to determine the sources of methane in its own country. Later on in the discussion, the Chinese representative basically said the West needed to give China more technology and more money to address the problem. So that's interesting, in that China is quite effective at securing technology from other nations through other means. But it was an interesting conversation, and hopefully they're going to make more progress on particularly agriculture. It seemed like the fossil fuel industry contributions of methane were fairly straightforward in addressing, simply patching the leaks, abandoned mines, abandoned wells, transport of natural gas, flaring, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of things in the fossil fuel industry were possible. However, in agriculture, it's going to be a greater challenge in that we're going to go from 8 billion people to 10 billion people in the next 20 odd years. And that means agricultural production has to increase. So at the same time agricultural production has to increase, we have to drive down these sources of methane, which are in the agricultural industry, it's largely from animal and manure sources, as well as rice farming. So it's going to take an awful lot of effort on the agricultural side to address this problem, as well as the landfills and wastewater treatment. So it'll be interesting to see how these various programs develop, but it's going to happen fast if they expect to achieve reductions in methane in the coming years, as they're bringing down the carbon dioxide and also reducing the global dimming aerosols that accompany the combustion of many of these fossil fuels. So it was a good discussion on methane, and it's good to see the United States is ratcheting down on it. It's one step in the right direction. However, they're also going to have to look at various direct air capture technologies like zeolites and other methods being researched, because as the climate crisis continues and as temperatures increase, we're going to have basically positive feedbacks from the methane clathrates, I think they're called, and other sort of northern sources of methane. These are going to be emitted naturally as the Earth warms, and those will not be under our control to reduce emissions. So just like carbon dioxide, there'll probably be direct air capture methods required to fully address the methane issue.
Well, as always, Dr. Capece always gives a really well done presentation on the things that we need to be working on immediately. This comes up as a follow-up. As many of you might know, COP26 was the methane COP. It was the COP where everyone agreed that by 2030, we must be reducing our methane emissions by 30%. And I'm glad that China now is addressing some of their, complete reduction of methane to 0% by 2060. That would be very nice. However, hopefully they will stick to their 2030 pledge of reducing methane by 30%. That being said, today we're finally closing up our briefings today, or our briefing today on COP27. Does anyone have any final remarks that we'll make before we close out today?
Just waiting on any major agreements throughout the week. What else can we do?
You know, I saw a couple articles today that they don't think COP27 is going to finish on Friday. They think it's probably going to go into next week because the negotiations are going absolutely terrible right now. But again, surprise out of a hat is the best that we can expect at this point, and we'll all be looking for that rabbit.
I don't care if it takes one more week. What's one more week compared to doing nothing? So yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. But I think as the Japanese, as you showcased at the Japanese pavilion, the connections and the discussions at some of these pavilions are probably just as powerful as what the delegates are doing behind closed doors. Showcasing the technology, collaboration on the technology are incredibly important. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what new information that each of you bring to the table over the next few days. That being said, everyone, from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, and Gainesville, Florida, we're wishing you a wonderful Monday, and we plan on seeing you all tomorrow for our Day 11 briefing. As always, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Lately, it seems every passing second brings news of another climate-driven disaster. But we still have the power to turn back the clock. Harnessing the power of collective human energy, today's university students are working together to chart a new future, demanding and creating the solutions for a sustainable climate. Our focus in science, engineering, activism, and politics offers the potential of a better tomorrow for all of us. Tune in to Campus Climate Corps for news of what is and what is not happening at this year's UN Climate Conference. Prepare for a livable tomorrow with the life and career of action. Join us and become part of the solution.